6. From Monday, times of clouds and sun, high 70. Mostly cloudy Tuesday with a high of 70. I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi from the KFNX Weather Bug Weather Center.
Currently, in downtown Phoenix, it's 56 degrees.
Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX.
Stand by satellite. Coming to you in 5, 4, 3, 2.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. You've been living in a dream world. This is the world as it exists today.
The only thing that restricts the activities of the surveillance state are policy. They'll say that because of the dangers that we face in the world, we need more authority, we need more power.
Surveillance is at an all-time high. The Constitution is being violated every day. Your gun rights are disappearing day by day. Learn how to fight back legally and responsibly. With your host, Steve Cates, on A Call to Rights. Call in now, 602-277-5369, or nationally, 1-866-536-1100.
So, as we set out to defeat the divisive forces that would take freedom away, I want to say those fighting words for everyone within the sound of my voice. From my cold, dead hands.
And now, here's your host, Steve Cates.
Always refuse to be a victim.
And at 5 minutes after the hour, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to one of the fastest growing radio shows of its kind, a 10-year legacy here on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX, with me, your humble host, Steve Cates. And a hearty welcome to all of you watching us on Facebook Live around the nation and around the world. As we move on through time and space to December 1, 2019, I want to wish each and every one of you the best, and hopefully that you had the most joyous and healthy and patriotic Thanksgiving that you possibly could, and also wishing you from the bottom of my little tiny heart, which of course beats very proudly for what America stands for, a most joyous and sacred Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, that we adhere to the principles that we talk about here so much on this radio show. The main theme of the radio show, just in case you've never watched the radio show or listened to it at all, always refuse to be a victim, because in our simple, humble opinion, a victim is simply someone with no options. Always fight back legally and responsibly. And another sidebar to this particular radio show, for those of you watching, of course, on Facebook Live and here with our esteemed studio guest, never be a spectator in the fight for freedom. I thought it appropriate, before we introduce our special guest for the entire duration of this hour, a fast hour indeed, is of course to give out the phone numbers. The local Call to Rights hotline has and always will be this, 602-277-5369. And nationally, that's it. Get involved in the conversation early, but please try to stay on measure, folks, with the subjects at hand. We do appreciate the brevity of the questions and, of course, to give our guests an opportunity to answer. Nationally, we're at 1-866-536-1100. Just before we introduce our special guest in studio, I want to do a little housekeeping. Today, some very special guests. If you thought that millennials all and Generation Zers are all moving to the left side of the political spectrum, you're certainly wrong. Here in the studio today, we'll introduce each one of them proudly, are members of ASU's Republicans United. Their website, which you can, of course, go to at your leisure, is republicansunited.org. We're here to talk about their experiences and how we can grow American exceptionalism, patriotism, and all the other good things that we stand for here on this radio show. But as we move through time and space, just a little preview of what's coming up in December of 2019. On the 8th, I should say, we'll be live at the Crossroads of the West Gun Show. This is the big one, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Small Arms Review Show. If you're a Class 3 machine gun fan, yes, you heard it right, especially those watching us going, did he say Class 3 machine guns? Yes, the legality of owning those does exist, and it's not something we made up. But one of the biggest firearm shows where you can buy, sell, and trade in the entire nation happens, get a load of this, Friday the 6th from 11 to 5, Saturday 9 to 5, and continuing on to the 8th, 9 to 4, we'll be there on Sunday doing the Call to Rights radio show. One of the best places to meet fellow Second Amendment enthusiasts, and those that believe in American exceptionalism. Moving on to Sunday the 15th, former Delta Force operator Tom Shatterly, his brand new book, All Secure. Yes, he was one of those involved in the Black Hawk Down story and is emblazoned in that movie. And where shall we never forget what happened to American soldiers in that horrible attack in a place a long time ago, far, far away. He'll be our special guest for the entirety of the hour. We give you the best guests possible in these subject matters. And then on December the 22nd, as we race toward the new year, author Michael Barone, How America's Political Parties Change and How They Don't, a very popular person seen on Fox News, CNN, and other worldwide networks. And then finally, on Sunday the 29th, incumbent Mayor Jeff Sturdy of Apache Junction joins us here as he does the show for me, as I take my well-deserved one Sunday off a month doing the things that are necessary to keep me sane from the world outside. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our very special guests in studio, it's a privilege and honor to welcome three patriots to America, as they, of course, young people who do believe in the things we talk about here on the radio show. I'd like to welcome Julie, the president of the organization of Republicans United. Also, I'd like to welcome Rick Thomas, the co-founder, and Nina, the vice president. If you'd all say hi, good morning to all of you.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Well, thank you for joining us, and a Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. You know, I want to start off this way. As I mentioned in my little monologue in the beginning, it's so important that many people understand, and I know many out there do, that not every student in college thinks that America should be a socialist nation, and not every student in college feels that American exceptionalism is something a long time ago, that old men who formulated something called the Constitution, that we need to change it and follow what we consider the new things and the new types of thinking in the world today. So let me start off with Julie. Julie, again, welcome. Merry Christmas to you and your family, to you particularly. But talk about the organization. Why are you so empowered with this organization? What does it stand for to you?
So College Republicans United is a club on campus, and basically we just try to spread conservatism, and we just try to tell students, it's okay to not be
Just
socialist.
get closer to the microphone.
It's okay to, not be socialist. It's okay to be conservative. You can support your president, believe it or not. So we just try to spread those values to people on campus.
Wow. Just tell me, did you have this awakening one day when you saw many students out there thinking that the other path was the righteous path? What was the convincing bit of evidence that actually made you steer in this direction of more right side conservatism?
So I actually grew up Republican, and going to college, I was told, lay under the radar, just get through, graduate. So I did that for about a semester. And then it was getting to the point where I'm like, I need other people that I need to talk to. Like, it's getting really hard to hide. And so I found this club, and here I am.
Well, congratulations to doing that and talking about this from your heart. And to all of you watching on Facebook Live, we do appreciate that. Our producer is LJ. She does an excellent job of navigating us through time and space. So if you do have questions there, know that obviously I cannot answer you personally. I wish I could, but send a question to the Facebook Live screen, and we'll do our best through our producer LJ to get your question on the air. Joining us is Rick Thomas. You're a co-founder. Talk about this. Founders of this organization. How long ago? And tell me your passion for this.
So the organization was started up about 2 years ago. And originally I was a member of the College Republicans. I joined the College Republicans, leaving community college to ASU, because I was shocked by how biased the professors were at Chandler Gilbert Community College, where I needed a space to go to kind of vent my frustrations with faculty and other students.
Wow.
It was kind of just like a counseling session and just really a camaraderie of other like-minded individuals. But as time went on, I saw things within the organization that I wasn't too happy with. They were banning speakers and members from going to the events.
First Amendment issues, right?
It is a First Amendment issue.
Big time.
These organizations should be a free speech platform where anyone should be allowed to come in, give their piece about why they support this campaign or why they're running and why they you should support them. And I saw that Kelly Ward was banned at the time by the leadership, and I thought it was wrong. And so I grouped up with another individual, and we started our own organization, College Republicans United. And ever since then, it's been a hit on campus.
That's an awesome story. And we have so much more with our special guests. But finally, let's introduce Nina. You're the vice president. Welcome.
Yes.
Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thank you.
Tell us your passion for the organization and why you're here.
Well, being a Republican, I was a sophomore during the 2016 election, and I supported Trump openly, and I was able to witness firsthand how I was treated for being a conservative and supporting Trump at the time. And it really made me become more passionate about it, saying, well, I want to be able to speak my mind and not feel guilty about it or feel like I'm going to lose friends about it. So throughout high school, I was still a conservative. I was involved in whatever I could. So coming to ASU, it's a really big school. Most of my classes, the teachers are very biased, the other students are very biased. So being able to join College Republicans United was a really good outlet for me because I feel like I have friends who are also like-minded, and I can help in other ways to spread the conservative cause and talk about my ideas.
Thank you for being here, and thank all of you. Folks, we're coming up on the first break here on this radio show, which goes very quickly here. But what I want to remind you, for those of you watching on Facebook Live, if you do have questions or comments, let's keep them on subject if we could, please. Our very special guests here are members of Republicans United, their website, and I encourage you to go there because, of course, not only from this radio show, but this like-minded thinking that we're going to expose today is certainly different than what many people might think in the downstream or mainstream media, in which all students are supposed to march to the drum, and many of them are thinking that socialism and other activism is the only way to go. We're also going to get into conversations about what students like these here today might face when they come up against an organization known as Antifa. I'm Steve Cates, your humble host, navigating the airwaves here for over 10 years. Always a privilege and honor to be here with like-minded people, and that means you. 602-277-5369. And it wouldn't be possible without our producer extraordinaire, LJ, who's counting me down as we go to the break. We'll be back after these important commercial announcements that keep this particular radio show on the air. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
AGI Sporting Goods is a sponsor of A Call to Rights with me, Steve Cates. What a gun shop should be. They treat people as you would want to be treated. Stop by now and see for yourself. They're located at 10444 East Apache Trail in Apache Junction. That's just west of Signal Butte Road. A vast inventory of firearms and so much more. All major brands, more tactical rifles than just about anyone in the area. A Kimber master dealer and a SIG significant dealer too. Surplus rifles and ammo too. And how about a Class 3 gunsmith on site? Knives, survival gear, and long-term storage foods too. AJI Sporting Goods prides themselves with the best trades for your dollar and honest estate appraisals. Owner Jeff Surdy believes in your Second Amendment rights and our Constitution. Call them now at 480-984-8616. That's 480-984-8616 on the World Wide Web at ajisports.com. AJI Sporting Goods, what a gun shop should be. If your needs require a process server for all your civil litigation needs, call Roadrunner Process Service, a sponsor of A Call to Rights with Steve Cates. They're fast, efficient, and reliable, providing services throughout Phoenix and Maricopa County. They perform with consistent reliability. They guarantee both value and quality and serve the most challenging defendants. Call Roadrunner Process Service now at 480-626-8718. That's 480-626-8718 or on the World Wide Web at roadrunnerprocess.com.
This is Judge Janine Pirro with Fox News' Justice with Judge Janine, and the author of the new book, Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge, The Left Plot to Remake America. I am ordering you to stay tuned to Call to Rights and Steve Cates on KFNX 1100.
This is John Milkovich, author of Robert Mueller, Errand Boy for the New World Order. Thank you, Steve, for exposing government corruption, confronting the attacks on our freedom, and for defending individual rights. And thank you for reminding us freedom is not a spectator sport. You're listening to Steve Cates, A Call to Rights, on independent 1100 AM KFNX.
Welcome back to A Call to Rights, a show that encourages you to never be a victim, because a victim is someone with no options. Visit with us now as we investigate those options with guests from around the world. Get your calls in now, 602-277-5369. And now, here's your host, Steve Cates.
The proper role of government is to protect equal rights, not to provide equal things. 17 minutes after the hour, ladies and gentlemen, this portion of the Call to Rights radio show is brought to you by the good folks at Tony's 5-Star Transmission. You know, folks, I've used them myself, and you should too. If you have difficulty with your car and it has an automatic transmission, think no further than the good folks at Tony's 5-Star Transmission. You can give them a call, and certainly they'll respond to you rapidly and fix your vehicle and get it back to that state that you want, that once you had. 623-878-9200. And one of the reasons we like Tony's 5-Star Transmission is emblazoned on their business card is this saying, and I quote, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interest, but to each of you, to the interests of others." Thank you, Tony, for being a sponsor of the radio show. 18 minutes after the hour, and we thank you for watching us on Facebook Live. We get a question from Guy out there, I believe in Mesa, who wants me to ask each and every one in turn. Of course, Guy, thank you for the question, and the question is, what do each of you think the importance of the Second Amendment is, and what does it mean to you? Let's, of course, start over here with our very special guest, as Julie will take that as president.
So the Second Amendment is actually one of the things that I believe strongly in. It's one of the top things that I believe that we should definitely have. Without the Second Amendment, you obviously can't have the first one. I like to go shooting as often as I can. So it's a lot of fun to do. Yeah.
Then let me ask you a sidebar question to this. And I know Guy didn't ask this, but I'm going to jump in here as the host. So what's the most dangerous thing? I mean, about restricting the whole Second Amendment, it's a very complicated thing. So should we be able to make compromises with people on the types of firearms we should own? Or do you believe as an individual that what is said is written and that's the gospel?
No, I believe what is said is written. I believe, the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So you restrict the Second Amendment, you're only making regular, honest citizens the criminals. So
good answer. And these are, again, they folks weren't coached to say these things. They're not being paid. They're here on their own. And thus their organization, of course, republicansunited.org, says that, of course, they are a .org. Let's ask Nina the same question. Your value of the Second Amendment. What does it mean to you personally as a young woman?
Personally, I think I have no problem with guns. I'm against red flag laws. I think it should be absolutely pro Second Amendment.
No.
Personally, I don't like shooting guns that much.
Okay.
But my boyfriend likes it. People around me love it. And I think that's awesome. And I think it's a great way to protect yourself in your home. So I'm entirely pro Second Amendment.
That's awesome. Let's continue with the same question with Rick here today. Rick, importance of the Second Amendment. What does it mean to you?
Without the Second Amendment, there is no protection or guarantee for the rest of the Constitution. I think it's ridiculous that we have Republicans that are willing to compromise with the Democrats on how far the Second Amendment goes.
Precisely.
I think Governor Ducey is mistaken in supporting red flag laws, especially with Martha McSally backing that up. The whole point of red flag is to confiscate weapons from law enforcement, ex-law enforcement, former military, people that they can classify as a potential problem without any real due process. And it's a huge threat. We've seen this in Australia where they have common sense gun legislation, which moved the bar in how difficult it was to get a gun permit, get a weapon, and then they would keep moving it, gun registration, then full out confiscation. And that's the end goal. So we need to make sure that they cannot move in that direction and we preserve the Constitution as it was originally intended by the founders.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better. And again, these are folks that belong to an organization. They were not forced to do this. They're volunteers themselves. Republicans United. Rick Thomas is the co-founder. We're joined by Julie. She's the president of the organization, and Nina, the vice president, again, taking time out of their busy Sunday. If you have a question for these young folks, I would certainly encourage you to get in on the line right now and give us a call here. The local Call to Rights hotline simply is this, 602-277-5369. And nationally, maybe you're listening to us in a rather non-friendly state to firearms, and you may be wondering and say, you know, folks, I really love you guys down there in Arizona, especially this time of year, because the weather is going to be at least 70 degrees today when we're watching all over the television, seeing people who live in other states where the temperatures are horrible, blizzards are coming. But those people, of course, have every right just to be able to have firearms too. But unfortunately, the constitutions of many of those states and the activist politicians there are denying us what we call due process for our Second Amendment rights. Let me go back to Rick again. I want to talk to you about this because how I found you is a gentleman that may or may not be listening right now, Charles Loftus. I've known Charles for so many years from the law enforcement side of the world. He's a great man, and I obviously a patriot also. So you and Charles, tell me a little story about Charles and how he interacted with your organization.
Well, before we got to Charles Loftus, he's a faculty member at ASU. in order for a club to exist, you need to have faculty endorse the club, and they're basically the front to the organization with the university.
Right.
And we went through 4 different faculty advisors before we found Loftus. A lot of the faculty didn't realize how engaged they would have to be with the club in terms of dealing with issues with members or with the administration. When we tried to bring in Milo Yiannopoulos about 2 years ago.
Ouch, boy, that's a toxic name, even though he's a great guy.
He's a great guy, and we believe in the right to free speech, and
How
a lot of
toxic.
our members wanted to listen to him.
Right.
But the faculty did not want to have a huge incident with Antifa, and they cowered back and decided they no longer wanted to be with our organization. So we went through 3 others. Eventually, we got to Charles Loftus, and what I love about him is that he's a fighter. He's not afraid to confront ASU and push back on what we're doing. If they don't like the fact that we're bringing ICE on campus and they want to shut down events, he'll say they have the right to the free speech. They have a right to assemble. They have a right to bring any guests they want.
Exactly. And this is the argument here, because we're not just here, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about the Second Amendment, though obviously we all love it and we certainly want to see its preservation and not to be whittled down into something that looks distorted from what its original inception was. But this is one very interesting. Why can't, I guess I'm saying this rhetorically, and everybody watching on Facebook Live, you might agree with me and maybe you don't, but if you don't know what rights you have, how do you know what rights you lose? Isn't that very well said? So let's go back and talk about the First Amendment. This is what I don't understand. In my college days, we didn't have this, factions fighting each other. We had some of it, okay, but today it's really at an intense edge. It's like the knife has been sharpened even more. So the whole concept, I want you guys to just jump in. Anybody who wants to jump in on this, please do. The First Amendment, I thought it was supposed to be about at least tolerate the people who have a different opinion. In other words, if somebody from the radical Islamic side of the world came and wanted to talk what many people might describe as hate speech, isn't there a place to at least hear it and let the person speak? And again, we don't advocate hate speech from any of us, none from you and none from anybody else. But why is it, maybe I'm asking a question, maybe I need to be reeducated. Is the environment in college today where this is what I'm hearing? It's like if you don't agree with the other side, what you have to say can't even be said at all, and we can't even hear you. We have to suppress you.
Well, these groups have a different understanding to what free speech is. I've spoken to Antifa, and their definition of free speech is I should be allowed to go up to the podium, take the microphone out of your hands, and shout you out and deplatform you. And for me to say you can't do that, if you're going to protest us, you need to have a space away from the assembly that we're having. That to them is a violation of their free speech. So they just fundamentally don't understand the point of why people should be allowed to come up and speak and meet with our members.
And
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, something else about it is even if they're not directly taking your microphone away or not letting you speak, they will label you named. We had an event where we had an imam and somebody who's a critic of Islam have a debate. And afterwards, the state press wrote articles saying how we're Islamophobic, implying that we're white nationalists for hosting this event, even though we were trying to have an unbiased point of view in this situation.
You were inviting both sides, so the listeners of this and the Facebook Live audience can hear this clearly. They were inviting both sides to the conversation. Debate, that's a strong word, whatever you want to call it. And then, as Nina's describing, all hell broke loose, and describe it in your way.
The event itself went really well. You had people representing both sides there, but the articles afterwards that are on the state press were both of the articles, the opinion piece and the article just describing the event, were saying that we were racist, Islamophobic, and implying that we were white nationalists for hosting that. The problem is I wrote an article responding to that. That wasn't posted on the state press. So we aren't able to give a rebuttal to anything. They're allowed to smear us however they can, and maybe that's their free speech, but we should be allowed to say, hey, that doesn't make any sense.
And let me ask this question. This is kind of crazy from a talk show host because I think I know the answer, but that's why you're our guest. So if we were to have invited the, quote, other side to the table, the point is, what then would they be doing here? They would be pulling the microphones out of and from what I'm hearing, they'd be pulling the microphones away from you, shouting you down. How would we have civility in this room? I wouldn't tolerate it, but I would welcome the other side to a conversation. But what I'm hearing from all three of you is that ain't happening.
Yeah, I think they're insecure with their own position, and they don't want us to speak our minds because they're afraid that other people might agree with us.
But unfortunately, this tends to lead to violence. Look at Portland. Okay, what's happened there? Look at Charlottesville. Obviously, we could go on and on and on from both sides of the equation here, but limited time. But the point of the matter is, you're an organization. If they have an organization for their side, you're not against them speaking, as long as it's not what? The violation of the First Amendment, and as long as there's no violence attributed to it or death threats of any kind. Why can't we all just get along? That's what they say, but the truth of the matter is we have so much more to talk about here, ladies and gentlemen, with our esteemed guests, Republicans United. They are spending their time on a busy Sunday giving you an opinion which is entirely theirs and every right that they have under the U.S. Constitution, under the First Amendment, to exercise their freedom of speech. But they also believe, without me putting words in your mouths, the other 9 amendments to the Constitution are just as damn important as far as the Bill of Rights goes, and that's why we have them here. This radio show would not be possible unless we had somebody like LJ navigating the airwaves, in which he's doing right behind the glass window, for those of you, of course, listening and watching on Facebook Live. I'm Steve Cates. The show has been on for 10 years, guaranteeing us nothing. But I can guarantee you this much, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue until the breath comes out of me, talking about American exceptionalism, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and I am so damn tired of hearing this when I watch mainstream television and even sometimes on Fox News, as President Trump would even excoriate their souls when they say that our living democracy is not doing well. We are a constitutional republic, and that is what we should always be reminded of every single day as you have your third cup of coffee or coming out of church. It's never too late to call us at 602-277-5369. Much more with Republicans United and your questions and comments and Facebook Live participation. We'll be right back after these important commercial announcements that keep this radio show alive and well as you tell us you like. We'll be back.
Visit us online at 1100KFNX.com. Arizona's only independent voice. Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX.
The House Judiciary Committee will hold its first hearing Wednesday as part of the impeachment probe. Democratic Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren tells CNN State of the Union the proceeding is viable.
It is, in the Constitution, treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors that is the cause for impeachment. And there's meaning to all of those terms, and that's what our hearing this week will be about.
Debate continues on who is responsible for the early release of a convicted terrorist who stabbed 2 people to death in London before being shot and killed by police. Correspondent Mark Bolton reports Houtman Khan's attack could have an impact when Britons go to the polls.
The general election is looming here. It takes place in less than 2 weeks in Britain, so this has become a highly charged political event already. Boris Johnson has said he will end the automatic release scheme, which allowed Khan to be released just halfway into his 16-year sentence.
I'm Ann Cates.
From the KFNX WeatherBug Weather Center. Well, this morning, a partly cloudy sky, partly sunny today, high 66. Partly cloudy tonight, low 46. From Monday, times of clouds and sun, high 70. Mostly cloudy Tuesday with a high of 70. I'm meteorologist Jim Rinaldi from the KFNX WeatherBug Weather Center.
Currently, in downtown Phoenix, it's 59 degrees.
Next news in 30 minutes or when it breaks. Here on Independent Talk, 1100 KFNX.
Take it from me, Steve Cates. If you're looking for New York best of the West pizza, then make it Raphael's Pizza. They're located at 719 North 19th Avenue in Phoenix. Hold them at area code 602-242-5117. They're open Tuesday through Thursdays, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m., Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. For the best pizza in the Valley, make it Raphael's Pizza. Say hi to owner Billy or call them at 602-242-5117. If you're in need of a quality transmission shop with great pricing and integrity, take it from me, Steve Cates, then look no further than Tony's 5-Star Transmissions, located at 10738 North 96th Avenue in Peoria. Tony and his staff have well over 36 years of industry excellence with outstanding customer reviews on service and much more. Call them now at 623-878-9200 for a free quote and evaluation. That's Tony's 5-Star Transmission, 623-878-9200, and online at tonys5startransmission.com.
Start your Black Friday at Sportsman's Warehouse. Doors open at 6 a.m. with doorbusters and savings you don't want to miss. Get a free Ruger 1022 when you buy the Ruger AR 556. The Vortex Spark 2 Red Dot is free with purchase of the Springfield Saint, and the Masterbuilt electric smoker is 50% off. For deals on the most unforgettable gifts this year, shop Sportsman's Warehouse or sportsmans.com. Sportsman's Warehouse. Gear up for unforgettable. For details on these promotions, visit your local Sportsman's or go to sportsmans.com/store flyer.
Well, this is Ronald Reagan, and you're listening to Call for Rights with Steve Cates. And I know Steve very well. We served in the War of Independence together. He was the one that ate the pigeon.
You are listening to A Call to Rights with Steve Cates, heard on KFNX, News Talk Radio 1100. Always refuse to be a victim. A victim is someone with no options. Visit us at www.calltorights.com.
Hi, this is Carol Channing, and you are listening to A Call to Rights with Steve Cates. God bless America.
Welcome back to A Call to Rights, a show that encourages you to never be a victim, because a victim is someone with no options. Visit with us now as we investigate those options with guests from around the world. Get your calls in now, 602-277-5369. And now, here's your host, Steve Cates.
People should go where they're not supposed to go, say what they're not supposed to say, and stay when they are told to leave. An interesting quote from a socialist thinker, Howard Zinn, a long time ago, which I think helped perpetuate and help promulgate the concept of Antifa here in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back at 35 minutes after the hour. We appreciate your time as we move through time and space on December 1, 2019. Our esteemed guests today are students at ASU, members of Republicans United, their website, republicansunited.org, and we encourage you to go there. A question is coming from Jan off of Facebook Live. Hello, Jan, and Merry Christmas to you and your family, and Happy Hanukkah to everyone out there, too, who celebrates that important holiday. Jan would like to know, does the organization recruit? So let's have the president of the organization talk about that.
Yeah, we do recruiting. So for any college student, anywhere, any college, you can start coming to our clubs. There is a few extra steps to become an official member, but we can talk about that once you start attending meetings. And then we also have a parent organization above College Republicans United called Republicans United, and Rick can talk about that.
So
please do.
Republicans United, the idea behind this is we want alumni members and people who maybe aren't college students because they're out of college, as an example, to be part of the organization to some fashion. So Republicans United is open to anyone and everyone that is conservative and a constitutionalist. All they need to do to join is pay a $10 membership fee and be active within the group, and you're set.
No, Nina, would you like to add something?
Well, I'm new to the group, so the way I was recruited in, I guess you can say, is that they table and on Wednesday morning, so you can come up to the booth and just like give your email and your name and say, hey, come to the meeting at this building on this time, and we're gonna have this speaker. And that's how I was recruited in the group.
Beautiful story.
All of our meetings are open to the public, so anyone's allowed to come in and view and spectate before they wanted to join.
Well, it's a real honor to have the three of you here today. And, you know, I'm sure many out there that are still attending church or those that haven't called, you know, no shame on anyone. It's just that these folks are taking their time to do something that, you know, it's a shame. I hate to say it. The outnumbered number, it seems that if you polled many college students today, you guys are in the minority. But the positive news here is that minority in which we see will certainly grow to be hopefully the majority in the future.
So I can tell you from tabling, we have a lot of students that come up to us and say, you know, I love everything that you're doing. I would love to be involved with the organization, but I can't because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what my parents will say. I'm afraid of how friends, family, faculty, other students are going to treat me if I become part of your organization. So there's actually a lot more conservatives at ASU than people realize. But how do we get them to actually come out and become activists? And that's our objective.
That's amazing. So again, republicansunited.org is the website for all of you watching in the high-tech world that we have today, and something that you need to go to, not just for Cyber Monday, but do it every day. And those out there, of course, that are asking the questions, we appreciate that. Jan, of course, hopefully that answers your question. Join us again here with more of your questions and comments. Stay on measure. Those of you watching on Facebook Live, we will, of course, get your questions on here. And, of course, everybody else listening within the Valley of the Sun and the great signal that Independent Talk 1100 KFNX has, 50,000 watts, ladies and gentlemen. I can see the hand of LJ in the studio right now on that dial, and she's got it up to 49,999, and, well, now it's about 50,000. So that's a very powerful signal, which we appreciate your indulgence on this morning. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to now bring in our special guests here and talk about something interesting. And maybe we'll, of course, have this conversation about Antifa by starting, of course, with Rick and talking about, tell us the reaction that you folks had with Antifa and how they mobilized so quickly. And to tell us about the event that you were having there and what happened with Antifa.
Sure. So for your listeners who maybe aren't aware, there's an ideological overlap from several different organizations, from Black Lives Matter to the Students for the Liberation of Palestine, the Young Democratic Socialists of America. And according to these members, they are Antifa. They are all one and the same. They just have different interests in regards to their number one issue. So recently, we tried to host Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, to ASU. Our members were curious about the difference between Border Patrol and ICE, the functions, what can they do, what can't they do. Just general information of how the organization runs itself. And so our meetings are to educate members. We want to bring in speakers to have this engagement with the students, and for anyone else who would be interested in knowing more about ICE. And the moment that we had advertised that we were going to have this event, within 3 hours of posting that, they had organized about 200 to 300 protesters.
Wait a minute, 200 to 300?
Yeah.
And what was the timeline when this got out? How long a period of time?
I think we posted it midnight, the following morning. Once they had realized it, they had already gathered enough of a backlash to what we were doing that they forced ICE to surrender and not show up to ASU.
Okay, well, let me stop you there. This is an important question that I want to ask our guest here. I want to ask Rick. So where and when did they start to violate your constitutional rights as you're an organization? They physically, just by a show of force, they stood there. But now tell me what they actually did. So in other words, just standing there and not saying anything, you were not free to move through their line, or did they come at you with force? What did they do?
They did block one of the entrances for us to enter the building where we were having the meeting. Luckily, we did find an alternate.
Intentional, obviously.
Of course. Right. We did find an alternate way in there. When they found out that the meeting had been canceled, or not even canceled, that ICE had backed out an hour before they were supposed to arrive, they had a mob that was already there and angry. They decided to use this mob for another organization, the Jewish Student Association, which was hosting the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force.
Wow.
Now, what they did differently from us versus what they did with them, they actually went into the club room where they were holding this meeting. They pulled out their Palestinian flags. They started yelling and screaming at the members as they were sitting at the table of where they were hosting
Right, I'm
this.
following you. Go ahead.
And they chased them out of the room. ASU PD sat and watched, did nothing. They didn't intervene.
And let me stop you again. You said it to me off record, and we don't use profanity on the show, but there was plenty of that, to threats and intimidation, verbal, but not physical. Or were they grabbing people and throwing them physically out of the room?
Antifa understands that if they do become physical, the passiveness of the ASU PD changes, and they will intervene to stop it.
Obviously, that's where we hope that cooler heads prevail.
Right.
Let's go to our caller line right now. Let's welcome Judy in Phoenix. Judy, good morning to you. As you can see, we have some very interesting young students here. Your question or comment, and Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you. Yes, I wanted to back up a little bit. When he said that there are a lot of kids that would like to join and they're too afraid, go on to the ones who aren't. Skip the ones who are afraid. We have Congress, afraid rhinos. We have afraid everything. We don't need that. So see if you can pursue those who have opinions and know why they believe the way they believe. Usually people with strong opinions know why they believe the way they believe are strong people. I'm telling my granddaughter when she's got an A+ and she's got all kinds of schools wanting her, the first thing you do is you interview that school and you ask that school, do you believe in free speech?
Right.
And if they pause, walk on, go to another school.
Good
You're
point, Judy.
coveted.
Right. Good point.
I just want to say, you need strong people to recruit. Forget the ones that are afraid.
Thank you, Judy. And let's our guests here just comment back. Go ahead, please.
I just like to say there's an issue when it comes to the classrooms. And this is what I have a big problem with. It is a lot more difficult to speak your mind about being conservative because the teachers decide what your grade is. And a lot of us have scholarships. and we can't have a failing mark. Some people say, oh, we'll just fail the class. We can't just fail the class because that's sacrificing our future. So we are forced to go by what they're saying.
But Nina, let me ask you this as a student. I mean, you don't have to answer this. It's very personal. Do you feel that the teachers that you have, the professors, because of your political beliefs, might then push you to the point where if there was a marginal grade that you got, would you then, according to what maybe you think, they might just fail you because they don't like your political views?
I think in a lot of classes that are more subjective, like English classes, that will be the case. And another thing is I think a lot of professors are forced to adhere to the more radical students because they don't want to have backlash. We see so many examples of professors getting fired, having articles written about them for disagreeing with students. So I think they're also held hostage to an extent, or they just believe the same things. So
what I think needs to be done here, I think the respect for the First Amendment needs to be the big issue everywhere, because let's say this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sitting here with 3 students, as you're watching here, from Republicans United. They're biased in their views. I like their views. I'm the host. But the opposite thing should be also in this circle of education. Shouldn't schools be a place where everybody gets a chance to speak and hopefully do it? And maybe I'm dreaming in a nonviolent way. And there shouldn't be a radical expose of people. Look at what happened in Berkeley. I mean, that got nasty.
Yeah.
Again, to describe who was the guest there, he was the same.
That was Milo Yiannopoulos.
Right.
And they torched the buildings. They threw rocks through windows. And the administration worked overtime to clean up the wrecks and did nothing about the students. No one was held accountable for it.
This is an important story. But again, I want to caution people here, as I say on this particular radio show always, keep your powder dry. This host is not advocating violence, nor do our guests here in the studio. But the point is, what happens when things and all hell breaks loose and you know what hits the fan? And I can't say the word on here because it's a family program. We'll be back with more from our special guest, Republicans United, here on the Call to Rights radio show, starting a new month, December 1, 2019. Wishing you and yours the best for a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and above all, a blessed and safe 2020. We'll be right back.
Start your Black Friday at Sportsman's Warehouse. Doors open at 6 a.m. with doorbusters and savings you don't want to miss. Get a free Ruger 1022 when you buy the Ruger AR556. The Vortex Spark 2 Red Dot is free with purchase of the Springfield Saint. And the Masterbuilt electric smoker is 50% off. For deals on the most unforgettable gifts this year, shop Sportsman's Warehouse or sportsmans.com. Sportsman's Warehouse. Gear up for unforgettable. For details on these promotions, visit your local Sportsman's or go to sportsmans.com/store flyer.
Yao's Chinese restaurant, located at 2487 South Gilbert Road in Gilbert, was recently awarded the prestigious Top 100 Chinese Restaurant USA Award. This award is given to the best restaurants in their class, and Yao's won in the category of excellence in signature dishes. To experience for yourself the Yao's difference, call them at area code 480-899-0308. Open daily from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Make it Yao's fine Chinese cuisine.
I'm cocked, locked, and ready to rock, Doc. Hey, working hard, playing hard, America. This is your blood brother, Ted Nugent, celebrating the American dream and our Second Amendment rights to keep and bear arms. With my blood brother, Steve Cates. Stand up for what you believe in, my friends.
Hi, this is Barry Farber, and you're listening to a man I have found well worth listening to. His name is Steve Cates. On a call to rights, always refuse to be a victim, fight back legally and responsibly.
Welcome back to A Call to Rights, a show that encourages you to never be a victim, because a victim is someone with no options. Visit with us now as we investigate those options with guests from around the world. Get your calls in now, 602-277-5369. And now, here's your host, Steve Cates.
The most promising method of securing a virtuous and morally stable people is simply to elect virtuous leaders. 47 minutes after the hour, we continue our conversation, and proud to call them fellow patriots and friends of this radio show, as this 64-year-old talks behind the microphone, talking about American exceptionalism, our Constitution, and our Bill of Rights. never think that young millennials or Generation Z do not think alike like this. Let's now go to the callers. Let's go to Peter, as Peter's joining us here this morning. Good morning, Peter. Your question or comment to our special guest.
Good morning. I want to comment on the experience I had shortly after the election of Barack Hussein Obama.
Yes, sir.
I was visiting Colorado Springs, and we had a day reserved to visit the Air Force Academy.
Wow.
And after our tour of the Air Force Academy, we met with several of the cadets in just casual conversation on the grounds. And I asked one of the cadets what he thought of our new president having the middle name of Hussein, knowing that a child who was given the middle name Hussein is dedicated to the service of Islam by their parents. That doesn't necessarily turn out that way, but that was the intention.
Okay, I'm hearing you.
Then he said, well, he is the duly elected president of the United States, and I, as a member of the armed forces, follow the commander-in-chief and the chain of command as it comes to me. And I had to tell him that I would sleep better at night knowing he was on the job.
Okay.
We further continued the conversation in that he felt that the country was changing, that there were a number of young people starting to adopt the idea that their idea is the only idea. And that's all that should be listened to, and everything else should be shut down.
Okay.
Now, back in Brahma's first year, that's when I had this conversation with him. That idea was already coming to light, and I hadn't really heard of it before that, but that was my first clue.
Okay.
And after seeing all these limitations placed by the threat of violence or mob rule to squash the First Amendment and the inhibition of conflicting ideas, it became very alarming to me that our colleges and universities are no longer places where ideas matter.
You know, Peter, you say it so well in many areas. And let me say this show has never been about hate to anyone. I'm hearing you clearly, and I certainly respect your opinions here. What we're trying to drive at, and you hit it on the end of your conversation and your statement, is that the point is colleges should be the area and ground for free expression, and there shouldn't be suppression for expression. How about that one? Maybe we should have a T-shirt like that. Maybe I just made somebody rich. Freedom of expression, not suppression.
I
How's
think
that?
that's a great one.
Or else go out and buy a suppressor. But the point of the matter is, no, let's have, and you're going to have to take the answer off air. Thank you for being part of this. I can't thank you enough, Peter. Let me start off and have some of our esteemed guests here jump in on this. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's become it's not really safe to be a conservative on campus anymore. It should be a place of free speech, but it's honestly not. Like, tabling at ASU, we've been spit on before, and we've had certain gay members in our club be called different slurs and be called a traitor because they're Republican.
Queer traitor.
Yeah, I thought you were allowed to be a Republican no matter what,
This is
no
so
matter what you were.
sad. I mean, and it doesn't go just to students, ladies and gentlemen. You're all watching here. All I'm trying to get a message out, and I think we're doing a hell of a good job, at least on this, is that if the Second Amendment is so important, which it is, to keep the others, we better start looking at what's happening to the degradation of our First Amendment rights. I may not agree with somebody who's on the left or the socialist side, but I don't wish them ill will by wanting to scalp them, beat their head in. But the point is, if somebody's coming at me with violence, I mean, I've trained for years, folks. I mean, I do this not just as a radio host, but as a trainer with concealed carry and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, we have to keep our powder dry, but you shouldn't have to be able to take abuses. So let's get to the core of this whole issue here. What do you feel should be done at ASU? What's not being done at ASU to continue to protect your First Amendment rights as much as the person who wants to fly the Palestinian flag and speak their mind? Let's start off here with Nina.
I feel like this is a problem that's in academia itself, because the core of the liberal arts it's Marxism. The way they think about structures, it's all based on Marxist ideology. So their beliefs are based in the structure where whoever's in power is bad and whoever's the victim is good. So they see us as saying, we're capitalists, they see us as evil or perpetuating an idea that harms people. So that's how they see it. So there needs to be a radical change in their thinking so they don't see us as enemies.
Good
if that
point.
makes sense.
Let's go to the callers and try to squeeze in as many as I can. Doug in Phoenix, you're on. Your question or comment? Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah, my comment is this. Ever since grade schools, they have eliminated critical thinking. And the reason they've done that is to bring in their liberal viewpoints. It starts in grade school. It goes through to college, where they eliminate critical thinking. You have a liberal viewpoint, and it's the only viewpoint. It's either go along to get along or you don't get a grade.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the perfect example of this was when Melania Trump was in a current grade school here just this week, where she walked on stage and she's booed by kids that have no clue of what they're booing, but
That's
they're
exactly
just
right.
hearing and mimicking exactly what the teacher
Exactly
tells them.
right. Who's behind that? And the point is, everybody, look, in a perfect world, and it's not, obviously these students here are expressing their opinions. None of them have advocated violence.
Well,
You don't.
it's behind the liberal agenda that has
Absolutely.
come into our school systems. It has started all the way from elementary schools, where they're starting to try to teach sex education to elementary school kids. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It's a liberal agenda that's destroying this country. It's destroying the youth, and it's destroying their ability to critically think, reason, and ask questions that matter.
Well said, Doug. We got to run. Thank you. I know the time is short here, but thank you for your time. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Let's continue. I don't know if we have Dennis on the line. Let's say, Dennis, how are you? Where are you? And your quick question or comment.
Okay, Steve. Thank you. I believe, well, first of all, I'm in Texas. In Texas, they don't mess in Texas. Secondly, I think we need to have critical thinking and start teaching civics. And I think Americans need to unite. Americans united. Because this is a disease that we are fighting. That's what this is. And we have to be activists and politically oriented toward the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and communicate to people who disbelieve that they're not acceptable. That's not acceptable.
And to
if
families.
It's not going to change.
And to
things have to
families,
change with them.
Dennis. I hear you. You're going to have to take the comments from our esteemed guests off air. Thank you. Be safe in Texas. And I know you'll be going back to your location in Illinois. Let's give everybody here an opportunity to surmise points. Let's start off with Julie. Thank you for being here. You're the president of the organization. Your closing comments to this conversation.
After everything that we've been saying here, all the things that have been happening on college campuses, if anybody wants to help out from where they are, some ways that you can help out is by contacting one of the biggest associations on campus that is affiliated with Antifa is called the YDSA, or the Young Democratic Socialists of America. If you want to help them kind of de-radicalize and hopefully not be a club anymore, please contact their faculty advisor. For you to be a club at ASU, you need a faculty advisor. So please contact theirs, Ben Fong, at byfong, F-O-N-G, at asu.edu, and tell them that this kind of behavior coming from their club should not be acceptable at ASU.
Good point, Julie. Let me ask this question. By going to the website, republicansunited.org, can they also send those comments over there too if they didn't catch that email? What you just mentioned?
Yeah, we can put it on the website for
All
them
right.
to make it easier. Yeah.
That would be a good thing. Let's surmise your points here. Let's go to Rick, and thank you again for being here.
I'm very pragmatic and I'm very practical about what we can do to start working on some solutions. I think ASU needs to start doing an audit on these students who have criminal histories, because we know for a fact that a couple of their leadership with the YDSA have felonies that they have only just now found out from back in January. If we were to do felony background checks, and people who have assaulted police officers should immediately be pulled out of the university, in my opinion. For everyone else, the ones that go to these meetings and they take over an assembly and they're assaulting other students and preventing them from having free speech, I think they should be temporarily suspended and forced to go through a training program about how to conduct yourself peacefully on campus. I think these students are completely naive in what they can and can't do, and if the university teaches them, which is supposed to be the point of a university, but to teach them on how to conduct themselves, then perhaps we can start moving in the right direction.
Well said. And I think the whole bottom line of this whole exercise for the hour, at least from my perspective here with these students, is you need to have respect for the First Amendment. Both sides of the equation can be heard. They should be heard. But am I a dreamer? And I think also there should never be fear and intimidation.
Right.
And that's exactly the point. Let's give Nina an opportunity to surmise her points. And again, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. Exactly what Rick and Julie said. For me, I feel like we really need to focus on making people, especially who are women or minorities, feel like they are comfortable. Because like we mentioned before, there's a lot of bullying that happens because it's like, oh, you're not helping your team. And that shouldn't be the point of politics, is just about helping your own team. It should be about protecting the Constitution and the rights that we've given and how amazing America is as a country. So I think that's what we should be focusing on, and making conservative not be a bad word.
Good point. Good point. And I thank all of you for being here. Republicans United, republicansunited.org is the website. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live. And a big plug for their organization. I, along with them, we're going to be at the big SAR show, the Crossroads of the West Gun Show, next Sunday, doing the show, of course, 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And we usually use that half hour to give Rob Templeton the opportunity to talk about the show. And that's one of those things that's shrinking, ladies and gentlemen. In America, what's next? No more gun shows? I mean, believe me, people there make a living there. They do it honorably and honestly, 99.9% of them. And we've seen some problems, but those are easily fixable. But let's accentuate the positive. Your organization will be there next Sunday also,
Correct.
or throughout
the entire week. College Republicans United will be there at the gun show. We are going to be working with Daniel McCarthy's Senate campaign to get him on the ballot.
Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank LJ, our producer, for navigating these important conversations across our 50,000 watt, which is an exemplary example of the First Amendment. We're speaking our minds in a free nation, at least at this point, and hopefully we'll keep it that way. Next week, live at the big gun show, the one called the Small Arms Review, the Crossroads of the West. We'll see you next Sunday, 11 a.m., with great guests throughout the month of December. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. We'll see you next week.